Welcome to the reality check. June 19th, 2018. Get those 18 and 19s mixed up. So, as you can see, a different view this week. We'll try the up close and personal, and you can really see my fat rolls view. Today's show, we're going to talk about the World Cup review, of course. We had the World Cup of first games for every team, pretty much, and we'll talk about kids being separated from their parents, because we know that's a big topic. We'll talk about the Nazi sympathizers and more. So, yeah, let me come before I say this first topic. So Anne Parent, 41 years old, strangled and battered by an illegal alien this year. Rick Smith, 29 years old, killed by a drunk illegal alien driver, 8/16/09. Jorgen Cheston, 48, stabbed in his home by a legal alien on 8/16/09. Natalie Chidlaw, 18, hit and run, drunk illegal driver, killed around 6/15/2013. Justin Troy Holland, 23, hit and run, illegal alien driver, 2013. Adam James Kemp, 12, killed by an illegal alien while attempting to board a school bus in 2012. Kimberly Hoyle, 39 years old, vehicular homicide by illegal alien with no driver's license, 2012. Amber Reed, 26, killed in a car accident by an illegal alien, 2010. Patsy Easton Barefoot, 60, murdered by asphyxiation by an illegal alien, 2009. Ronald Dale Viewegger, 40, killed by an illegal alien who hit him while he was riding his motorcycle, 2009. Charles C. Clemens Jr., 27, was a father of 3 and an Army specialist who was on a 15-day leave from his tour in Afghanistan when he was shot by a gunman who opened fire in a Spring Lakes restaurant, 2009. The gunman was identified by a Jamaican drug dealer in the country illegally. William Diari Perry, 18 months old, killed by a car crash from an illegal in Charlotte, 2013. Tony J. Gabrielle, 26, killed by an illegal alien drunk driver in 2013. Timothy J. Minor, 64, killed in a car crash by an illegal alien, 2013. Frankie Brooks, age 6, killed by a drunk driver while playing in his front yard. Martin Kudlis, age 3, killed by an illegal alien drunk driver. Darnus Brown, 10 years old, killed by an illegal alien drunk driver. Christopher Lanier, 15, killed by an illegal alien drunk driver. Kellen Bird, 2 years old, killed by an illegal alien drunk driver. Josh Morrow, age 4, run over by an illegal alien. Catherine Steinley, age 32, shot by an illegal alien. Daniel Pollock, age 31, hit and run by an illegal alien, and he died. Those are just some of the people who were separated from their parents. But we want to talk about separating children from their parents. That's the big story, what everyone in the news is talking about. That's what we hear, right? Yeah. Separating children. Obama did it. Nobody talked about it. So is it going on today? Yeah, absolutely. Children are being separated. You know, when Obama wasn't spending taxpayer money putting these kids up in 200 a night hotel rooms, he put them in cages. And I know about the $200 night hotel rooms because I saw the whole bus right down the block from me. There's a nice hotel that I couldn't afford to stay in, but man, they had a busload of kids there partying. Yep. So, not a word from the media. Nobody cared when Obama did it. Not a word. You know, all this proves is we need a border wall and security more than ever, right? You know, we hear the reason people come here is failed American policy for a better life. You know, firstly, there's no failed American policy. People have a chance to earn their way to become a citizen. You know, millions of people have done it. They've went from illegal to becoming a full-fledged citizen. There's millions of people have done that the correct way. If you don't want to be separated, don't break the law. You can enter legally through any one of 25 ports. They're not telling you this. You don't get separated. If you enter legally through any of these ports, you just tell them you're here for asylum, you're in danger and whatnot, and you get a trial. And you get to stay here plenty long. Until then, nobody gets separated. So when you try to circumvent the border, then you get arrested. So of course you're separated from your kids. You know what? And then when you get deported eventually, your kids will go back with you. But obviously, if you get arrested for breaking the law, your kids are separated from you. It's, the basics of law anywhere. You're just because you're a criminal and you have kids doesn't mean you get off scot-free. A lot of the time it's not even separation. A lot of these kids are being sent off. They're being sent off by themselves. How can a parent do that? Let your kids go somewhere where they could be enslaved or raped? And it's not because they're coming to the U.S. It's on the trip here. The coyotes and other people take advantage of them. One reason for that could be desperation, right? We hear how these countries are so poor. But, look, for example, you have the World Cup going on, right? Nations like Mexico are so poor, that's what we hear. You have to turn out to watch a soccer and pay money to travel and those high ticket prices at the games. There are many fans who can afford to make that journey. So the rich there are still rich in Mexico. Is the reason that there's no middle class in Mexico. So maybe that's why the rest of the people are coming here. Why don't the people stay in their own country and demand answers from their government? I think we know how that would go. And yet, all we hear is how bad the USA is. So obviously it's not bad here because our people can stand and demand answers from the government. In other countries, they obviously can't. But the thing is, we cannot pay for the whole world. As much as we'd want to or think we can, we can't. We have trouble taking care of some of our own people, from the mental health issues to, just our veterans that are, homeless and jobless and in poor health because we're not giving them the proper health care, which we can't afford to hire more doctors for, but yet we can afford to bring people in. It's, kind of like I can't afford to pay for my own family and they're suffering, but let me adopt a few more kids and bring some strays enough to stray. It just makes no sense. And people bring up the Statue of Liberty, 1886, bring us you're tired, you're poor. Those times were different. Things change. When people came here, there was no promise. They just had a dream. There was no welfare. Kids at young ages, they were working because they had to put food on the table. There were no extras. It was every generation working as hard as they possibly can to make it better for the next generation. If those are the type of people we can get, right, I'd love to bring them on. But they're few and far in between these days. And it's not just immigrants, but sadly, people in general, people that were born here. Some of them don't care less about anything. Maybe humanity is spoiled by their own success. Some people can't handle it and are lazier. Can we change our system? Of course, we can talk about that. Trump had tried to change the system, and all you get is some repubs, those rhinos, and all of the Dems, one group, the whole Dems, as one, posing and posturing. That's all these people are doing. And you hear people like Chuck Schumer even today say, we're going to let President Trump handle this. But that's your job, dude. If it was so offensive, you would have done something about it, like when you did it with Obama for 8 years, when you had control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and nobody could stop you, like they couldn't on the omnibus bill, on Obamacare, all those poor, shitty bills that did nothing for American people or anybody else. And here you had a chance to do something, you did nothing. I believe in sponsorship. I believe people should be able to come here with that and with a merit-based system, whether it's your family sponsoring you, they're going to take responsibility and give you a chance to come here and work. And, as long as you stay out of trouble and you work, you eventually earn your way to become a citizen. And the same thing, I believe businesses, if they need employees, if that's what it is, they find somebody working or they think somebody has a good resume, they want to bring them in, that's good too. That's another way to do it. No problem with that. But there are many stupid things being said about this, and one that's just offensive, and I mean really offensive when you just know and think about it. Today I was in Tempe, so I stopped at a stoplight and I saw it was a sign next to political signs. And there was, vote for this person, blah, blah, blah. It's like almost all year round now we have political signs around here. So this one sign right next to it had the swastika. And when I drove up, I'm looking at this thing, and around it said, "End U.S. concentration camps." And I used to think that it was people that were poorly educated that would even think stuff like that, would compare anything they want to compare to Nazis. Nazi, Nazi, Nazi. You're like a Nazi. You're like a Nazi. You're like a Nazi. But I really think that these people aren't poorly educated. I believe now that these people are Nazi sympathizers. Not synthesizers. Sympathizers. Sometimes they can speak clearly. So I'm going to tell you, I think when they do that, they write that, they get that swastika out, they found a nice big picture and invested the money to write that down. They get joy out of this stuff. I'm telling you, they do. And I've met people like this. That, oh, we're against Nazis, and you're a Nazi because of this, and you're a Nazi. I think they just want to be able to freely write this. They want to show you, yeah, look at this swastika. Look at that. And I'm going to tell you, I know from full experience, right? When I worked at Food City, in Mesa, and there used to be at one time, all of a sudden these swastikas came. I saw them on the phone outside, back when people actually used public phones sometimes, pay phones I should say. I saw a few there, one on the building once, we cleaned them off and stuff, and they'd pop up. But just, nobody said anything, we never had any problem, and all of a sudden these swastikas were popping up. And so one day, in our deli, it was up front, there's this lady smoking a cigarette. Obviously, you cannot smoke inside a grocery store, inside a restaurant part that people are eating. So I told the lady, I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't smoke in here. And she's like, oh, well, it doesn't. I'm like, ma'am, it's against the law. You just can't smoke here and stuff. So she puts it out, and she's angry, and then she's like, oh, and she shows me this paper, and she's like, I saw this outside, and I copied it, and I just wanted you to tell me, what does this mean? And it was her little drawing of a swastika. And I explained to her what it means. And I'm like, you don't know what that means. And this was some lady, she's probably, let's see, this was probably now at least 10 years ago, we'll say. And this lady was probably in her mid to late 50s. And she had the swastika on the paper. And she was asking me what it meant. So I explained to her what it means. And she was, oh, really? Like, she was so excited at me explaining this because she knew what it meant. She was the one who was probably writing it up there because as she was there, those were there. And then eventually when she wasn't, we just kicked her out of the store eventually because she became so belligerent with her trying to smoke in the store or just, you could tell she was just up to her little games that, when she disappeared, so did the swastikas disappear. So I'm telling you, these people that Nazi this, Nazi that, they're just, and the majority of them are just Nazi sympathizers, and they try to hide it like that. And so they're like, oh, look at the swastika. This is not good, huh? Yeah, they're Nazis. Look, I'm going to write it for them because they're Nazis. Yeah, no, they get the joy out of it. So that's what those people are. Now, so like I said, and when you hear people talk about these kids in Nazi camps, and it's ridiculous. It's pretty disgusting. I mean, Jews were held against their will. They were held for experiments. They were held for work camps and pretty much death camps. You worked till you couldn't anymore. If you weren't productive, they killed you. Or they took you somewhere for an experiment, whether they wanted to test a drug or whatever it was. They wanted to see how many pokes it could take your eye out. They did that. They did it to children. They did it to women. They did it to the men. They didn't care. Jews weren't trying to get in a country and got caught. Okay? They were trying to get away. Jews were murdered, like I said, from young to old, from men to women, and everything they had was taken from them. It's offensive and disgraceful to compare what Obama did or what Trump you're saying is doing to that. You know, if you do the research and you talk to people that work in these places and you learn about what's happening to these kids, the kids that are getting quote unquote not even taken away. If you look at it, most of the kids are coming here with no parents, so they're not getting taken away from anybody. You know, and half the time you don't even know if that's their parent. Look, because some guy says he's a parent. How do you even check? It's just like, oh, we're vetting these people at the border collie. How do you know? What do you vet them with? Oh, yeah, you're going to go to whatever country. You're going to trust their system. Yeah, their system of what? They don't even notate most crimes. Please, there's no way to vet people in general. So, I mean, it's just amazing. Like, these kids, when they're separated from the parents for whatever reason, which is because the parents don't want to go to one of the ports of entry and just say they're seeking asylum, they decide they want to break through something or climb over something, or they're getting caught doing something else illegal. So when the parents get put in jail and the kids have to be put somewhere, it's a holding place temporarily, and then they're moved into a nice facility. And look at them. You can find the pictures online. They get health care. They get schooling. They get food. They get clothes. They get toys, right? Because America, as last week I told you, donates more than any other country. And these kids get more. You know what? Is it the best thing? Would they rather be with their parents? Sure. But in general, you know, when your parents break the law and stuff, unfortunately, a kid has to suffer about it, right? Now, so if you're Jewish and you vote for any of these people saying this Nazi stuff, I mean, you might as well be walking yourself into a gas chamber. It is just ridiculous. I mean, it is just absurd. And to make that comparison, it's like I said, either you're a fool that's been uneducated, or most likely you're a Nazi sympathizer and you just want to say Nazi because you get off on it. Deep inside, you get off on it, and that's why you want to say it. You know, that's my 2 cents on it, but, you know, who knows? So, on to other things. And there are many other things going on here. The U.S., they quit the UN Human Rights Council. So, you know, that, of course, is pretty tremendous. I've said we should pull out of the UN fully, to be honest. All it is something we fund for other countries who are pretty disgraceful, countries that stone women or chop hands off if you get caught stealing, don't even have real trials in some cases. It's just, I said this and they're guilty because I'm important. And we fund all this stuff for those countries to tell us how bad we are. It's pretty ridiculous and absurd, but that's the way it works. You know, and finally, we got out of there. You know, it's the same, you know, Human Rights Council that always condemns Israel, you know. So Israel soldier gets taken, you know, gets kidnapped and killed, and then people are throwing stuff over the wall and Israel fights back, and oh, how dare them hurt anybody. You know, I mean, it is just, and we could have stayed on the council as a non-voting member, but they decided to fully withdraw, a complete withdrawal, and we resigned our seat effective immediately. So, I mean, that was just, what a tremendous move. Get out of there. Don't even deal with these people. It's a fake. They don't do anything, the UN. When there are real human rights violations, where is the UN? You know, where is the UN in Syria? They've done nothing. You know, where is the UN in any of these countries? Where was the UN, you know, with Libya? You know, where did they step in? They did nothing. Where are they today on many of the abuses, from the Yazidis, the girls getting raped and, you know, basically captured into slavery. If you don't agree with certain religions, you get taken off the streets. You're treated like trash. The UN not even condemning, much less nothing to back it up. So there are definitely reforms needed to make this council even worthwhile for the U.S. to get back into it. You know, it doesn't promote and protect any human rights worldwide. It's just a joke. It's like, I don't know. All it is pretty much for 90% of it is condemning Israel. We condemn Israel. We condemn Israel. We condemn Israel. It's the same terrorist organizations that actually have a seat in the Human Rights Council. It's amazing if you look at the countries that are on the Human Rights Council. You just want to laugh, It's like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby being on How to Treat Women Appropriately committee. And yeah, you guys are bad. You're not good. Yeah, no thanks. We don't need to hear from these fools at all. Sorry. So we still have some, I don't want to say effects, but stuff still going on from the IG report. There was a lot of information in that. Just an amazing amount of information. Questions you have to ask, Ray doesn't seem up to the task. Horowitz kind of like slow played it almost, kind of like yeah, there's this, but not really. I don't know. He could have dropped the hammer and he didn't. He kind of soft played it pretty weak, but it still sells a lot of things that went wrong. Firstly, if Hillary Clinton isn't responsible for destroying congressional subpoenaed evidence, who is? And when will they be arrested? Because we know she destroyed evidence when she got subpoenaed. We know she did, and she decided to dictate when it did. So who let her do that? Why aren't they in jail? And why isn't she in jail for doing it? You just got to ask yourself honest things. You saw an IG report, something that most people with common sense knew. We knew about it. But Obama emailed Hillary on a private server. So one, he said he never knew about it until he heard about it on the news. That old false safe little crap excuse it is. The smartest guy in the world is emailing something, not to a .org government, but to a personal email. And he doesn't know the difference. He's emailing out secrets, private stuff, whatever classified information. But he didn't know who he was emailing it to, right? He didn't know that it was her private server? Seriously? There are kids literally that are probably in 4th or 5th grade right now that could figure that out like that. Obama knew. He lied. When will he be held accountable? Basically, what he did is he emailed classified information in a non-classified way, knowingly. It wasn't a mistake. There's been many people, if you go to Leavenworth or any of the other jails, there are many people that are in jails for doing that same thing, what he did. But yet, all we hear about is illegal immigration, right? Nothing else. And that, yeah. And then we heard about the abuse from FBI agents calling Hillary president while they were investigating her. No political bias, though. They called her president. The whole... You could say whether you agree or disagree on whether Hillary Clinton should have went to jail. But there's more than obvious case that she should have went to jail or been charged with something if she pleaded or whatever. Still, that would have pretty much ended her presidential campaign. But they said there's no political bias, but they're referring to her as President Clinton, and they were insulting Donald Trump and Donald Trump voters. Unprofessional. Is it a crime? It's just unprofessional. But still, you're not going to convict someone when you're saying, I am interviewing the president, somebody who's not even the president. The future president. HRC. Sorry. Just from all the things you see, there were many people that had skin in the game, and they knew there was no way they were going to find her guilty. And then you hear the clowns, like I heard the other night on TV, that say, Comey was unprofessionally ruined Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, was Comey unprofessional? Yeah. Here's Comey. We know he was a fraud. I said he was a fraud from day one. He is not an honest guy. He lacks integrity. And this investigation, everything has only proved it. And since then, it's only proved it. All Comey is about Comey. Just like a bunch of these people like Clapper, a bunch of these fools. But now, Comey is emailing Hillary Clinton about her private emails. Her emails that are on a private server. And Comey is using a private email. I mean, it's like one bank robber investigating another bank robber. So they're not really going to say, are you guilty? Hey, how'd you do that? So I can do that. It's pretty much the way it is. I mean, you know, unbelievable. But again, as we talked about many a times, people keep on talking about how Comey ruined it for Hillary. And he didn't ruin it for Hillary. Hillary ruined it for Hillary. I mean, besides the fact that she is dishonest, not very likable for anybody who, has any empathy for people. And always, you got to see through her game. The email scandal, all the other things. I mean, horrible as Secretary of State, unqualified, did nothing when she was in New York. I mean, putting all that aside, everybody knows the reason why the investigation was open so close to the election, again, for 10 seconds so they could say how innocent she was because there was new evidence. They already hid the first evidence and said Hillary was innocent, but more evidence came out from the Wiener laptop. And Comey tried to ignore it, put it aside. Him and Strzok tried to hide it. But New York had it. And they said, we're going to go public with this if you don't do something with this. Why aren't you asking for this? Why don't you want to see it? We want you to have this evidence. There's a crime here. We want you to investigate it, or a possible crime. We want you to investigate it. And Comey tried to deny, hide, delay, to get past the election. And he couldn't, because these people didn't understand why he wasn't doing the basic job of taking it. So he had to take it. So he knew they knew. Oh, we're opening the investigation. Oh, 20,000 emails. Yep, nope, she's innocent. Good deal. Move on. Nothing to see here. Sorry. But guilty. Guilty on all accounts. And then there was the scuzzy things, of course, how a DOJ official was looking for a job for her son in the Clinton campaign when they're supposed to be inspecting her. There was, in this report, the IG report, was how there were many people in the media who were, not only we know about the girl who was having sex for stories. Talk about a reporter working hard. Well, she was working and somebody else was hard. But you had reporters giving out tickets to sporting events, expensive dinners, and to FBI and DOJ agents. They're accepting this. They know they're not supposed to. So they know it's a conflict of interest. And this is where all the leaks were. They got their free stuff and they didn't care less what came out. Oh, we're going to say this. Oh, we think that it might be this, and you know what, and this person attacked this person, and just stuff that wasn't true, but just throw everything out there, right? That's what you had there. Now, I was reading from Bill Mitchell, who has his own show. He was saying that the IG report reads kind of like this. The man entered the bank intending to make a legal withdrawal, but broke bank policy by reaching over the counter, grabbing the money, and running. However, we see no clear intent to actually rob the bank. That actually sums it up pretty well, because firstly, that wasn't Comey's decision to say there was no intent. That's supposed to be passed on for like attorney generals and them and DOJ to decide. And more importantly is, everybody knows in crime, intent matters to the degree of the crime. Like, if you went and pre-planned to murder somebody, your intent was there, you had a plan, so yes, it's a higher degree of murder. But if you murdered somebody, even if you didn't intend to, and it just happened, you were pissed off and you choked somebody to death, let's say, you're still committing a crime. Your intent was irrelevant as far as it's still a crime. Maybe for your punishment and sentencing, your people can say, your lawyer can say, well, he didn't plan this. It wasn't something he thought ahead of it. He just lost control at the moment. It was a mistake. So that might be a difference. But in the end, it didn't matter about your intent. You still committed a crime. Just like the guy who reached over in the bank, he didn't intend to rob it, but he just did. So, like we see here, ridiculous. Yeah, So we had the people say there's nothing too much to the IG report, nothing's there, and I agree in the sense of nobody's going to be arrested as usual. Yeah, I've heard that there are some people recommended for possible this and that, but until we see people that committed crimes arrested, it's really just another wasted report. Yeah, they're guilty. Yeah, they did this. Yeah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, nobody's arrested. Now, Bill Clinton, speaking of Clintons, he had to keep himself relevant. And it was amazing. The other week he had these interviews, and it's selective amnesia how you hear them talking about Monica Lewinsky, and they're like, well, Clinton never raped her and this and that. I was like, no, he raped other women now, so they don't count. We're just going to focus on Monica Lewinsky. No, that was just poor judgment and easily could have been blackmailed through that. And, of course, wasn't doing his job. And then you hear the old, oh, it's just a BJ stuff. No, actually, it wasn't just a BJ. He actually cigared a woman during her time of the month. Not that it matters, but just get your details straight. Okay, but with Bill Clinton, of course, he's not a sexual predator. That's what his friends say. That's what his followers say. That's what he says. And so I think Bill Clinton proved that he wasn't a sexual predator last week, because Bill Clinton isn't a sexual predator, because he said that the norms of what you can do to somebody against their will have changed. What an incredible statement by a rapist. The norms of what you can do to somebody against their will have changed. So basically, Clinton's saying is the game changed on him. So what he was doing was, you were allowed to do stuff against people's will, and then they changed that. Realities changes, so now that would be considered rape. So back then it was. Yeah? Yeah. Funny. But not funny. It's just, you have to laugh so you don't cry. Yeah. Let's see, what else can we go to? Let's talk about, we gotta go coast to coast, right? Every week there's usually a California story and a New York story. Two of the worst, governors in the history of America. But we have, for this one, it's going to be a San Francisco specific story, as opposed to a California in general story. So this will be San Francisco. So you have, of course, the Democrat stronghold, San Francisco. Yeah, cable cars, rice-a-roni, a gorgeous town at one point. San Francisco is beautiful. But you have the just ridiculousness of tourists can't even enjoy themselves anymore. Whether they're getting robbed or beat up, punched in the face, and their cameras getting stolen. You had the perfect example of some Australian tourists came down to visit, and they were staying in a hotel in San Francisco. And I'm sure these people have no idea. Me being in Arizona and close to it, and I've been to San Francisco, I know how it is. But is it normal, or are they in the bad part of the town? So they were saying, this couple was saying that they just walked past numerous homeless screaming, yelling, running up and down the sidewalk, which I've seen. I've seen them even naked. I saw a whole group of them on bikes naked when I was in San Francisco. And this is near the Twitter headquarters. And then a murder scene. It's a typical San Francisco day, right? Sadly, it's coming closer to the truth. These people were saying they did LA and New York City trip, and they felt safer in both places. Syringes were visible, people were staggering, others had wide, aggressive eyes, pretty much their eyes coming out of their faces, but they just looked visibly drug affected, under the influence, walking around the streets. It's pretty normal, and tourists really are starting to realize how bad the city of San Francisco is, and I'm sure tourism's down, and maybe the loss of the income will finally push the city to stop with these poor policies, clean up the filthy streets, clean up the trash that's on these, and there's a few nice places where most of the tourists go, which that's great and that looks nice, but you go down the alleys, piss-ridden. The city alone hands out 4.8 million syringes a year. And of course, doing that, it's going to be hard to keep the streets clean. I mean, you're already spending money on the syringes. Now you have to get the city clean. The homeless population's growing because they know that's the place to be. Free needles, free whatever you want. You can piss in the park. HIV and hepatitis C epidemic. And there's roughly 16,000 people in the San Francisco area that have HIV and 13,000 with Hep C. I mean, just insanity. They were estimating that back in the year 2016, so think about it, it's probably spiked since then, that there were 22,000 intravenous drug users in San Francisco. That would be one in less than 40, about 38.9 residents. I mean, wow. So San Francisco handed out 4,000 needles, and they received 246,000 back, which, well, look at all the waste of money handing them out, studying this, and counting, collecting. So if you look at that, that's about 154,000 needles that are floating around. And this is in 1 month. So you're talking in a year, there's almost 2 million needles unaccounted for, where they haven't been used, or maybe they've been used and just dropped right there because someone's out of their mind, or thrown in the regular trash, and they have a city worker who grabs it, or somebody who's just cleaning up an area, grab and gets stuck by one of these things. They could be near where your children play and they get stuck by one, and it can forever change your life because of the bad policies that we have in San Francisco by the government and the leadership. It's pretty sad that a once beautiful town is just on the decline, as always. It's another case of the sad but true. So, you always hear about Trump's a pervert and yada yada about all this stuff. Most of it not backed up by any facts. But the one thing we do know is there's a video out there you can see where good old Barack Obama's walking around with a stiffy, as the term could be, walking around the plane with media and stuff and pointing it at him and them laughing and having a good time. But nobody seemed to really care too much about it. And I don't know, I mean, people are going to have jokes and stuff, but, I mean, that's kind of something, So, it's come out that, that Becky Dory Stein, who was 25 years old, and she worked. She was a stenographer, and she was offered a job by Obama in the White House in 2012. So she would join a pool of 13 reporters from the White House press corps, traveling with the president and tracking his every move. Her assignment, with mic on hand, was to record everything the president said, type it up, release transcripts to the press office and presidential archive. She, made notes, and she obviously made her own because she wants to make a book now. Made notes about how she traveled to 60 countries with 5 years on Air Force One, and, pretty much witnessed the Obama's life in midair. Traveling with the president was like summer camp on steroids. A week on the road is like a year at home, she wrote in her new memoir. And so maybe some of this is her jazzing it up for a book. But she said her job gave her insight on obscure party culture within the press pool, a glimpse of the president's personal life, and she even had a love affair with a White House staffer. And she would work out on her treadmill next to the president, who often trash talked her, goaded her to run faster, and taught her to be optimistic. She saw how Obama coped with stress. He had his Nicorette gum to keep him from smoking. And he told the story of how he met Michelle and how he tried to pass her off to one of his friends. So, around the world, she watched a crew of smokers douse themselves in Purell sanitizer and just grab a smoke, but they used that Purell to make sure no smell lingered, because we know Obama was quitting smoking. Very interesting. Just a bunch of stories. She just had a bunch of stories. I'm sure she probably knows a lot more that she didn't tell. But a lot of people took the drugs of their choice, from Sonata to Xanax to Ambien. And just obviously people were acting weird. And then she learned of stories when George H.W. Bush puked on the Japanese prime minister and Reagan fell asleep in front of the Pope. And like I said, she had a sexual relationship with one of Obama's senior staffers in a hotel room. And, there was also Obama's traveling staff was almost all women and dubbed, the vaginas. Nice. Another classy term there. But what do you expect from the best president ever? Sure, it'll be an interesting book, and I'm sure that she downplayed a lot of it. So now, anyway, before that story, but just interesting, really the point is that, he wasn't any better than anybody else. Sorry. But you accuse somebody of something, like you have all the accusations on Trump with no proof, and you can actually see some of the facts on Obama, even with people trying to hide it. Now, like I said, we did the New York story, we did the San Francisco story, which, in California, and now we'll have to move on to the East Coast and the New York story. So, federal prosecutors had released a complaint accusing the New York City Housing Authority of putting children, elderly tenants, and people with health issues in danger by not meeting safe housing standards and lying about it. So, I didn't really hear any uproar about this. I hear Cuomo, a lawsuit against Trump, saying they're violating illegal immigrants' children's constitutional rights. Notice how they say immigrants, but it's really illegal immigrants. And they're not violating their rights because they don't have rights. They're not American citizens. But yeah, Cuomo's suing about that, but he doesn't seem to care about the stuff in his own state. So a new report concluded a 2-year investigation in one of the biggest managerial failings of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio's tenure, including charges that the NYCHA have been violating basic federal health and safety standards of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So de Blasio signed a consent decree with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan that commits the city to over $1 billion over 4 years and $200 million in subsequent years to fix the dire conditions throughout the housing authority's 325 complexes. In doing so, he took more ownership of the agency whose head he appointed, which is legally a responsibility of the federal government. Any changes will be made under the watch of a federal appointed monitor. Now, interesting, why do we even have housing developments at all, on a federal or a state level? It's pretty ridiculous. Now, the report detailed multiple problems stemming from Michael Bloomberg to de Blasio's 2 terms in office, which began in 2014 and still is current, sadly. Children have been harmed as a result of the NYCH's failures. Between 2010 and 2016, at least 19 lead-poisoned children were found to have been exposed to deteriorating lead paint in these apartments. The 80-page complaint said these 19 children are at risk of lifelong neurological problems. But the 19 cases understate the true extent of lead poisoning, which likely have caused by a crumbling lead paint. And everybody knows about this. Anytime you buy a house, you have to sign the thing knowing that, so you know there might be possible lead paints if there was ever lead paint at any time used in your house. And then, of course, there was, in addition to lead paint, housing tenements had other dangers like mold and vermin infestations. So mold grows unchecked at many of the developments, often on a large scale. Across the city, residents are provided with inadequate heat in the winter, leading to frigid apartment temperatures. Pest and vermin infestations are common. So, pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic again. There's de Blasio. And so, their lack of leadership, their lack of spending money on the actual citizens that live there, too busy wanting to spend money on people they want to bring in, or people from other countries, or some social justice fight. Now the people that are citizens that are struggling the most, the people that they are supposed to help the most, are suffering the most because of that. And now who does it cost? Well, it costs the taxpayers, because now not only do they have to pay, but they have to pay more to get these things up to the right thing, when the original maintenance would have helped them out, a lot better, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. So there again is your leader, Bill de Blasio, Comrade de Blasio, unfortunately making sure you're punished. So now, let's talk about some fun stuff. World Cup. So I gave you my predictions in the World Cup as far as the 2 teams from each division, each group, I should say, because groups A through H, that would make it to the next round. And of course, almost all the teams have played one game. Actually, no, every team has played one game at this point. I'm sorry. And then there's Russia and Egypt, which have played 2. So I would say out of all the teams, definite surprise team, a team that I didn't even think would make it on to the next round, is Russia. They beat Saudi Arabia 5-0. They turned around today and beat Egypt 3-0. So they're +8. They're definitely going to the next round. And Egypt's pretty much, they're done. Which is pretty sad. I thought Egypt was somewhat of a decent team and would actually beat Russia or tie Russia. And I thought, I thought Egypt was going to at least tie Uruguay in their first game, and they lost both of them, and they didn't look good in either game. So it looks like Egypt will be done. That'll ruin my A bracket. But Russia's really been impressive. And that's Group A. In Group B, Iran beat Morocco. A little bit of an upset. Portugal and Spain, of course. Ronaldo, 3 goals. That was a really good game. Probably the best. There were a bunch of really good games, but I think one of the best games, because you saw a star rise up to the occasion. I mean, all the goals. It was exciting. Two good teams, good quality soccer. So that was good. And, as I said, Portugal and Spain will advance to the next round. That's what I was saying. And they at least look in good shape. But we'll see. Portugal plays in a few hours. They play Morocco, so we'll see how that goes. And actually, in the afternoon, Spain plays Iran, so that should shake itself out. France beat Australia, no surprise there. Denmark beat Peru, that was no surprise there. I mean, to me, I thought France and Denmark are the class of that division, and we'll see. So Argentina and Iceland, that was a big shocker. That was a tie. Messi looked human. I don't know. He looked okay. Didn't look great. He definitely didn't step up like some of the other superstars, and he'll get his chance. What is it, in 2 days when they play Croatia, and Croatia looked pretty good against Nigeria, so that's going to be another tough game for Argentina, and they really need a win there. Otherwise they put themselves in a big hole. And I liked Croatia. I thought they were a good team. I thought for Croatia they would definitely have a win, a tie, maybe Argentina they'd lose to. So they won their first game, so they're actually ahead of schedule. So I like their chances of advancing to the bracket round. And then in Group B, Costa Rica, Serbia. Serbia beat Costa Rica. Brazil and Switzerland. That was a tie, and Switzerland was it was kind of a game that was really decided by officiating. Switzerland the whole game long, they just attacked Neymar physically. They grabbed his shirt. They literally choked him, and he drew about 10 fouls. But at one point, when they're going after somebody like that, I mean, you got to just start handing out cards, and that's the only way to make it stop. And the officiating crew didn't really do much of that. I mean, they gave a few cards, but for what they were doing, you can't have. It's not good for the World Cup. It's not good for soccer. If you can't stop them, you can't stop them. You want to play them physical. It's one thing, but to choke, to grab jerseys and all that stuff, it's just silly. It dumbs down the game. So Switzerland did get the tie, though. They got rewarded for it with Brazil, and Serbia beat Costa Rica in that one. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I thought that Brazil and Switzerland were the top two teams, so maybe they will be. Group F, biggest upset. No, not the biggest upset, but huge upset. Mexico. Mexico looked really good. I mean, their forwards were moving. They were solid in the back end. Germany had their chances, but they couldn't get there. They just didn't have a real striker that could put that ball in the net, at least in that game. And so Mexico won. That's good for them. I thought Germany and Mexico were the top two teams in that division, and Mexico, I think, showed they were the top team in that division. So we'll see how that goes. Sweden beat Korea, and they'll move on with that. Group G, Belgium beat Panama. They really turned it on late, and England won a close game with Tunisia. It was a good game. I think they scored in extra time, and I thought Belgium and England were the two class of that division, so that looks good in that. And then we had Japan beat Colombia. Now Colombia just they played tough. They lost 2-1, but right away they had a guy who put his hand up in the box and the ball that was going in, so he got a red card. And Japan got the penalty shot. They scored on that, and then Colombia, even being shorthanded, because when you get a red card, you're playing one guy shorthanded. Colombia came back and actually tied that game up. It was pretty decent pace considering they were down, but I think you wore it down a little bit, and Japan was playing. They played a decent game, not a great game, but they played a decent game, and Colombia, was just shorthanded, and Japan took advantage of that in a game that probably would have been a tie, and Japan took and won. So that was good for them. Senegal beat Poland. That game was a little chippy. And as far as that division, I thought Colombia and Poland would be the two top teams, and it looks like maybe not. It looks like Japan and Senegal have the shot. I mean, they pretty much control their own destiny now. So we'll see how that goes. And, that's the World Cup. So I'm not in bad shape as far as my teams. I'd say the only team I thought would move on that's totally eliminated is Egypt. I mean, they're pretty much in the bucket, the sawdust bucket of the World Cup for this year. I know Salah didn't play the first game, but he played. He looked okay, but I mean, they just, I don't know, Egypt just, they played pretty poor, pretty sad. So that's my World Cup, and we will definitely keep updating that every week. And then when we get to the bracket stage, we'll definitely have brackets. I don't know if we'll have enough, maybe do a whole show on the brackets. We'll see how that goes. But we definitely will go over the brackets and how my brackets are, and you know. So interesting story that I saw just before I came on the air. Not anything surprising or shocking, but interesting. And it was John McCain and Mittens Romney ties to Fusion GPS. It had the markings of a promising federal investigation before FBI agents were told to stand down and walk away from the compelling evidence. This is what FBI insiders said. Romney, who was running for Senate in Utah, and pretty much another chronic get-out-of-jail-free card by the FBI. So, there have been thoughts or rumors or circulation around that. We know McCain provided a Trump dossier to the FBI, but they're saying that he might have helped fund it as well. And James Comey, back in the news again, spiked an FBI probe that uncovered McCain and Romney had ties with Fusion GPS, the same Fusion GPS that funded the Trump dossier and from the DNC link coffers. So maybe this was a combined effort between the DNC and Mittens and McCain, kind of like a plot all together to find a way to take down Trump. So the FBI agents basically were looking at bank records. They were also interested in financial transactions from the McCain Institute of International Leadership. And it's pretty interesting that Comey just spiked that investigation. It's very interesting. Another tie. I mean, just very interesting. And it was interesting to the FBI. And of course, James Comey blocked the investigation. So I'm sure it'll come out eventually if they did help fund the dossier. Irrelevant in many ways. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it'll come out and Dems will try to use that as an excuse, saying, well, look, John McCain, just like they said originally, it was Republican research that, led this about Trump. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you pushed it, you falsified more, you knew none of it was verified, and you treated it when you went in the courts like it was a real document, as opposed to a paid, a paid document by not opposition research, but opposition hate. I don't know. I mean, just unbelievable. When we crossed the show, we opened with kids being separated from their parents and Nazi sympathizers. We talked about the UN. We talked about the IG, up and down that, everything we can on that. San Francisco to New York, all the corruption there, the disgrace of, California and New York streets, unfortunately. And then, of course, we obviously reviewed the World Cup and all the games there, and some exciting games, obviously, for tomorrow's slate, which will be not bad. You have Uruguay and Saudi Arabia, an interesting game, and like I said, Portugal and Morocco and Iran and Spain. So that's good. We'll get some good quality games, and hopefully we see some stars shine and get some great games like we did. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to the Reality Check. My name is Ben Cheneman. As always, I appreciate you watching, listening, laughing, and hopefully this new camera view wasn't too bad. And probably there's some ways it'll be better. Have a great and safe week, and we will see you next week.